timing didn't work out for them, and we'll be able to get this to them. And that will be all internally. There's nothing showing up on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. But this is more for current clients who want to just same position as you. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the program. I want to tell you we hit a big milestone recently. We just rolled out this new version of the EEG, which a lot of you are able to use, which has the a wireless lead that goes to the phone or the iPad, and the gel and the paste. And we just really started using the newer device back in October, November, and we just surpassed 1,000 sessions for people, which is really incredible to think about. 1,000 sessions, 20-minute sessions going on literally all over the country. Some of these are being run outside of the country and running by all kinds of people, kids, adults, older adults. We have 3 NFL quarterbacks that actually use the program, multiple executives. And so it's a wide range of people, and it's exciting to see where this is going. We have been in this business for a long time. I've been in neuroscience for 35 years. But this new advancement of the technology, in the past, you used to have a coach have to kind of walk through every session with you because there was all kinds of wires and gel and paste and computers. And now the ability for you to do it on your own is quite striking. And so it allows for us to see more people and get this really good technology out there. And then it allows you to have more freedom when you're doing it, which is super, super exciting. So let's get rolling. If you don't know, there's a website, Inner Armor Neuro, and there we have all types of informational videos. If you haven't watched those, please make sure you look at those. We also have links to multiple podcasts. We have over 52 podcasts that talk about everything under the sun that you can imagine in relation to the brain. Great resource. And then anybody who doesn't have a copy of Forge Your Inner Armor, which is a book that I wrote last year, Forge Your Inner Armor. If you'd like a copy because you joined the webinar today, we're going to send you a copy. So just put in the chat your address and we'll send you a copy of that book because that's super, super important. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's get rolling. First of all, I just want to start with when we talk about the brain, which is this guy right here. I brought a brain. I always have an extra one around just in case, the one's not working. I need an extra one. So I carry one here and I keep one in the trunk of my car. So, I've got these extra brains. But really, all joking aside, we only get one brain, right? You get one brain. In science and medicine, there's a lot of things we can replace for you. If you need a new hip, we can get you one of those, okay? You need a heart transplant? Sure, why not? Let's get you a new heart. Something's wrong with your blood? We can actually take all your blood out and put new blood in. Amazing what we can do in science and technology these days. But you only get one of these. One of these guys, 3.5 pounds. It is truly the most amazing thing that exists in the universe. Most amazing thing that's created is this human brain and what this thing can do. And so when I tell people, look at what you're investing into and what you're managing, right? And how often we get our car looked at, our heating and air looked at, different things taken care of and managed. How much are we actually managing our brain or trying to optimize this, which is the most important asset that you possess? And so what we're about at Inner Armor is helping you get this guy working at its highest potential. So in order to understand how we do that, we want to first look at, well, how does it work? Okay. And trying to do that in just a few minutes is pretty hard, but let's get to the basics. This organ runs off of electricity. It's an electrical device. Without electricity in it, and if you saw a flat line, you would be brain dead and it wouldn't be working. But continuously from the time you're born till the time you die, this thing has electricity working in it that lets it do amazing things like store memories, solve problems, speak language, all kinds of things, create iPhones, right? From this guy right here that has electricity running through it. It's amazing, right? And that's going to run throughout your entire life. And the thing is that electricity can run in different ways. It can run really, really fast. It can run really, really slow, and it can run in a perfect speed. And if I was going to kind of put in a nutshell what EEG does, is it's really helping those speeds that have a lot of volatility and are out of balance, how to get them in this perfect rhythm of electrical current in the brain. Because when the brain has that perfect rhythm in it, it can do things that you can't even imagine. Okay. And so what we want to do is create that electrical current to be very even and steady. And we'll talk about that in a second, how we do that. Okay. But that electricity is super important. So the big question is, where does this electricity come from? Right? Where does the electricity come from? Like, I got my iPhone here, right? And I know at night I gotta charge this thing and I gotta get electricity into it. I'm not too sure how it really gets stored on this battery that I can have electricity without being on it. That's kind of just amazing stuff, right? But I know I need to get electricity to that iPhone. And so what do I do? What do you do? Is you plug in your phone at night, right? And from some power plant way far away, it comes through an electrical grid, comes through your outlet, and gets the electricity gets stored on your iPhone. That's amazing. But the question for you is, where do we get the electricity? Right? Like, I don't have a cord, right? I don't have that attached to me. So where do I get this electrical current? I mean, it's amazing. And I'm using it, but I have to make it. Like, I have to manufacture the electrical current. Isn't that cool? That's really amazing. You are the most amazing power plant that exists on the planet because you can make this very efficient energy that's constantly running with very minimal resources, right? You're very, very efficient. So, where do I get it from? First thing that you should probably think of is food, right? We need food, and food really determines the quality of the electrical current. So when we look at different proteins and fats and carbohydrates, those all produce different types of electrical current. Like a carbohydrate is very fast and intense, right? Proteins and fats, not so much, but they burn much longer, right? And they give us more long-lasting energy. And so when we're looking at the electrical current, the reason we want to have a healthy diet may not just be for how we look, but it's also for how I'm making electrical current. Am I making clean energy? So can I make energy from a Big Mac? I sure can, but it's not very clean and efficient. But when I look at things that are sourced well, good nutrients, I make good electrical current, which ultimately affects the electrical energy in the brain. Okay. So we think of food, that's very important. But I can go a while without food and still my brain will still work and the rest of my body will work. I could go days or weeks if I had to, right? So besides food, what else is there? Well, I need water, right? On the downside, negative side, if I see a puddle with a wire in it, I don't want to step in it because that conducts electrical current. Well, I need to conduct electrical current from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, right? I got to have this electrical. So hydration helps a lot with that. And that's why if you go, just a very short period of time without water, the electrical current will start to short circuit and not work, and you'll eventually die. Third thing I would say is sleep. That's what these are kind of the order that most people say it. So sleep is super important because your brain, as it uses electricity, it kind of gets inflamed throughout the day, and then it needs a period of time where it can kind of anti-inflame and it can kind of shrink in size a little bit and then get back at it during the day. And at night is when we do this rehabilitation in the brain, where the brain can rest and recover. In that process, since the brain can never ever turn off, it has to stay on. allows us to still be using electrical current, but at the same time restoring. I mean, that's just mind-blowing, right? Is that we can do this through sleep. Thing about sleep though is if I go 7 days without sleep, I'll go psychotic. I'll stop, it'll start to short circuit, and then by day 13 I'll die. So sleep is super important for that. But number one thing, 90% of your energy that you make comes from oxygen. Isn't that crazy? Think how much time we spend on so many of these other things, right? And 90% comes from oxygen. That is so amazing. But yet, how often do we stop and think about breathing and taking in oxygen and this precious gift that we've been given that, unlike food or water or sleep, I can't go very long without oxygen. In 4 minutes, I'd probably give up everything that I possess for one more breath of oxygen. Oxygen is so important. That's why we're very on the Inner Armor base program, where we learn to do breathing and biofeedback, which is also available to you guys if you want to do some more of that. We're really working on breathing and heart rate, is the oxygen is so important to the brain. Okay, so we make it and then we manage it. Okay, so I'm making it through these things, and now I need to manage it. And this is where the EEG is going to come in, okay? Is you have this thing called the autonomic nervous system, and this autonomic nervous system is constantly looking at the environment, looking at everything that's happening, and it's doing that through these 5 conduits, which are our senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, these different things are taking in information and they're analyzing the environment, and then they're deciding, do I need to go really, really fast or do I go really, really slow? And so this software system is doing this every second. Every one of you is someplace on this continuum right now of the autonomic nervous system based on your sensory input. Okay, we do a lot of work in the vision space in kind of our base program. And the reason we do that is every second we're taking in 11 million pieces of information. 10 million of them are visual. 10 million are visual. And that visual information helps my nervous system decide how much energy I need to use at any given moment. So let's take this example. I walk outside and I see a lion. Okay. When I see that lion, that sensory input, or I hear the lion, sensory input, my autonomic nervous system says, go fast. And I go really, really fast. I need to use a lot of energy. And my brain lights up. We'll see that in high beta activity, fast activity. And then something at the base of my brain called my hypothalamus, it starts getting activated. It releases a message to my pituitary gland, the base of my brain. And then that sends a message down to my adrenal glands. And my adrenal glands then pump out adrenaline. And within milliseconds of the sensory input, the autonomic nervous system has kicked me fast, and adrenaline comes out. And now every cell in my body will go from taking in 2 or 3 channels of sugar to taking 8 channels of sugar instantaneously, because the autonomic nervous system says, go fast. That's just one of a cascade of things that the autonomic nervous system does. But when we look at things that bother us or that are problematic, you're going to find that they're at the extremes. They're either the nervous system is going too fast or the nervous system is going too slow. So let me give you an example. I can't sleep at night. Okay, I'm lying there, I'm wide awake. Is my nervous system going too fast or going too slow? It's going too fast. What does it need to be doing in order to sleep? It needs to go slow, but I can't get my brain to settle back down, right? And get into that slow space. Let's say I can't get out of bed the next day, or I'm depressed or I'm fatigued. I want the energy to go faster, but I can't because I'm stuck in this slow state, right? That's a reflection of the autonomic nervous system. You could also look at all different physiological things we experience. High blood pressure, a fast problem. Depression, a slow problem. Attention disorder is really a slow problem, and you give somebody an amphetamine sometimes to speed it up. But everything we're dealing with comes from the autonomic nervous system being out of balance. The more we're in the middle, where we can transition into sleep, transition into crisis if we need to, but we're always back at the middle. That's what we're trying to do in EEG, is you're trying to bring your brain back to the middle. And the cascade down is it'll affect all these other things in a positive way. One last thing before I leave this slide is in medicine, we're really good at chemistry, okay? And so we've learned over the years is that with certain chemicals, I can also shift up and down the autonomic nervous system. So let's say my nervous system is getting anxious, I'm having a panic attack. I can take a Xanax, right? And what does that do to my autonomic nervous system? It slows it down, right? Or I can have a problem focusing and my brain's not going fast enough, and I can take an amphetamine, Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, and I can speed it up. What did I do is I chemically altered the autonomic nervous system. That's okay, but it doesn't really solve any of the problems, because what happens when that chemical's back out of your system? You're right back where you started, and maybe even worse because you didn't learn how to manage it. What we're doing in EEG feedback, what you're doing with the neurofeedback, is you're learning how to move up and down the autonomic nervous system in positive ways and teaching permanent changes in the brain. That's why it's not just like put it on 3 seconds and you're done, like taking a pill, because we're kind of teaching the brain. It's a learning process, which is far more powerful over time than any pill the brain can take. So that's why some of the people we work with are extremes on the clinical side of what we do, are at extremes: severe autism, severe depression, people with, all kinds of post-traumatic stress, all these things, because we can really meet anybody on this spectrum because your brain is involved in all these things. We can also meet an NFL quarterback who's someplace in here, but he wants to be right here. So one of the questions I want you to think about is, where do you want to be? Because the best version of you is that one that can be in the center and regulate the autonomic nervous system and not needing a pill to do that. Okay. So before we kind of show you an EEG and then take some questions, I want to hit this one last slide. Okay. So what are we doing at Inner Armor Neuro and Royer Neuroscience? Is, where do we fall? Well, I want you to think about the different things that you might go to your doctor for, or you might, have the conversation around the dinner table about, or you might talk to a friend about, or a therapist. And a lot of times these are what we call downstream things. My focus, my creativity, my anxiety, my mood, my peak performance in the financial arena, my peak performance in the sports arena. These are behaviors. Throwing more touchdowns, for instance. Okay, that's a behavior. We're not necessarily going after that. We're going to this spot that's up a few levels. And as we go up, you'll have things like thoughts and feelings that drive your behaviors, right? Like you feel a certain way and then you lose your cool, right? Well, that's a feeling that drives that, or a thought pattern. And that's still not as high upstream as we want to go. We want to go up to the body to get that as regulated as possible. Ideally, we want to get up to the highest possible part, the highest upstream. And that's why I can have a lot of people with many different behaviors that we're working on, but we're still doing a similar process, because if we get the brain working correctly, then these downstream effects, we see positive outcomes with that. So we're always talking about upstream. What you're doing is upstream. Many things that happen in medicine will happen downstream, and we want to get upstream and teach the brain. Okay, you guys tracking with me on that? All good?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at live EEG. Okay, and we're going to look at that. I'm going to talk about it, and then we'll be done and take some questions. Okay, so let me make a couple moves here. Give me 1 second and pull this up. So Tom Moss offered for us to be able to look at his brain today. So what we're going to look at for Tom, I actually have, every session you've done, we have the exact same information on you. And but we're going to use his as an example from today, a session that he did. It looks like I'll know for sure what time he did it here. He doesn't have to tell me. At 12:21 is when I got the data that came through. So let me pull it up here and I'm going to show it to you. But we're getting this data about your brain all the time during the session when you run a session. And you might not be seeing this all the time, but we want you to know that we're analyzing this and looking at it at all times, even though it just seems like, hey, I'm just watching a video. Well, let me show you what's going on behind the scenes. Okay. Let's see. Let's get out of here. Okay, so this was Tom's session that he ran earlier today. It was a 30-minute session. And you're looking at that's the recording of the beginning. We're at second 45 of Tom's EEG. Okay, so that electrical current is running through his brain at this moment in time, and we're recording that. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Like, I'm in Michigan. I think he's in Florida when this was done. Okay. But through the new technology, we can get this in real time. I can watch him in real time if I want to, right? And I'm looking at all the electrical current. Now, in here, there are waves, brain waves, that are more parasympathetic or slow brain waves. There's brain waves that are fast brain waves, and then there are brain waves that are ideal. So let's watch this for a second. I want to show you something. You guys can see this. Well, right here, he did a cough or something. That is not brainwave activity. And then he's back on board again, okay? But you're going to see a couple right in here, these kind of slow, kind of almost look like McDonald's arches, okay? That is the brain resting for a second, okay, which is good, but we don't want it to rest too much, right? And then when you see these really sharp waves that are tightly compressed, those are fast waves that if Tom did that all the time, he would be very anxious because he'd be stuck in sympathetic. But I can see the balance here and see we're working on a nice balance of getting the fast waves under control and also getting the slow ones. Now, let me show you how we're doing that, which is pretty cool. So down here is the whole 29 minutes of Tom's session, okay? And what I wanted to do was, we're looking in this section down here, is the frequencies between 23 and 35 hertz. So you remember when we said slow versus fast on the nervous system? Well, every organ that runs off electricity has slow versus fast. You know that in your heart as higher heartbeats, like a high heart rate of 100 versus a low heart rate of 50. That's kind of the continuum that the heart's on. Well, the brain has a continuum, and that's frequencies of activity that go from 0 to 35, okay? 23 to 35 are like having a really fast heart rate or having a really fast respiratory rate, okay? It's anxious, it's stress. We don't want a lot of that. So what we did during the session is we created a variable threshold that is rewarding Tom 65% of the time. Excuse me, 55% of the time. And I can change that reinforcer depending on how hard we want to push Tom. Somebody like if I'm working with an autistic child, not that Tom's autistic, but if I was working with an autistic child, my reinforcer might be more like 90% because those little pauses are so disruptive to them that we want to be careful not to overwhelm them. But then I'll have somebody else who comes to me and say, it's not enough. I want you to pause me more so we can adjust that, okay? Tom and most of you guys are set at 55%. But if you ever want us to change that, if you ever feel like I can deal with a little bit more stoppage, we can change that. But that's kind of the default we work with. So here's Tom. We're looking at his fast brain waves over this 30 minutes. And you can see he's all over the map with his, sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. But do you see kind of the peach colored, pink colored area? Mm-hmm. That's the reinforcer that's saying, if you're going to bounce this high, we're going to make the movie pause or the sound go away, right? And that's what you guys notice as the disruptions. Those aren't random disruptions. Those are based on brainwave activity that we're looking at that's getting out of balance. So when Tom went up into the peach area, based on the last few minutes, that was too much of a rise. And so that told us his brain was going into sympathetic. So then we hit it. And we said, no, 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 no. And then he started to dip back down again. And did you see what happened 5 minutes later? He went back down again. Then he started coming back up again. And then we pushed him back down because we're always changing. Okay. So this variable reinforcer is a phenomenal thing. And we don't want to make it too hard or the movie would never play. So we can change that. The last one that we'll kind of finish up here and then I'll take questions is we also have some slow waves that we want to be higher in some people. And in Tom's case, we want to dial in on the alpha waves, which are 8 to 12 hertz. There's never been a new idea that's ever happened that didn't come out of this frequency. This is where new ideas come out of. This isn't the day-to-day solving math problems, getting through my schedule, or running from the lion, which is the fast ones. And it's also not the sleep brainwaves. These are where we come up with new ideas, alpha waves, 8 to 12 hertz. So do you notice something different about what happened in the way that this is set up on the reward? It's set up at 56%, but it's the opposite. We're rewarding Tom when those brainwaves rise more, the movie plays, but if he dips in his creativity, he gets the negative reinforcer, okay? And which you can see, and you can also see he's changing. Every minute, Tom's changing. So we have to work with his brain as it's changing to create that up and down of let's reward him harder here. It's like a variable weight machine, and let's not reward him here. And we're doing that every single session. And that's what's happening for you guys when you're doing sessions, okay? So that was a lot of information, went a little bit longer than what I anticipated, but hopefully that was a good base for you. Ian, did we get anybody with any questions? You're on
Yes, we
mute.
did.
We did.
So we have one here. It says, how does neurofeedback help with chemical imbalance in the brain?
Okay, good question. Okay, so the chemical imbalance is another way to look at another way to say that is the autonomic nervous system is in balance. Okay, so there's different reasons that we could get going fast on the sympathetic, right? So I could literally be in a foxhole with bullets going over my head, right? And I'm going to be going fast, right? Because life and death situation, that's a sympathetic. But there's things that you can actually do with somebody like special forces that we've done work with it. Even in that situation, they can still stay calm and be able to shoot a sniper rifle at 200 yards, right? Well, they're controlling their autonomic nervous system, even though the situation got them out of balance. But a lot of people that you'll see that stuck up in sympathetic have had things that have produced anxiety, unresolved trauma, unresolved loss, different things that have them up in that anxious state or anticipatory stress about things that are coming. Then there's a second reason. So you can have something literally in the environment that creates that out of balance. Then you can have actually something like a chemical imbalance, something that you're the fourth generation of people that have experienced anxiety in your family. And there's something about the epigenetics, okay, that have happened that you guys, this family tends to, and you know different families sometimes, that tend to generate a little bit hotter volume, and they're kind of living up here. And just like with epigenetics that may have gotten you in a bad spot, we want to use learning and different ways to pull you back into a more ideal or regulated spot. Then a third reason that we can be stuck up there is because of some type of internal thing that we're totally unaware of. If I have inflammation in my gut, okay, leaky gut or some type of inflammatory response, There's no bullets going over my head, no genetic thing that's been given to me, but I'm inflamed. Well, my body's in a battle all the time. And so it can get stuck up in here, and I might not be able to sleep because sleep is a slow response, and my body's stuck in this fast response all the time, right? So, in these chemical interactions that happen with changes in dopamine and acetylcholine and all these other things, when you look at those, you'll see different places that you are on the autonomic nervous system. The really amazing thing is that we can learn our way out of those things through giving the brain feedback. So in clinics that we used to have for a number of years, we would see 84% of the people that came to us on medicines were able to get completely off their medicines through the neurofeedback process. Not using another medicine, but using the brain's greatest ability, which is to learn. And if all of you out there just think of like where you are today, what you've done, that wasn't because somebody gave you some special concoction to drink. That was because you were hardworking, you learned, you applied yourself, you learned from your errors, and you capitalized on good things, and you use that learning process. That's why we have schools. That's why we do all kinds of things through learning. So when it comes to the ultimate learning, that's what neurofeedback's doing, is it's teaching learning as far upstream as we can get to teach those neurons to fire in a different way. Okay? Any other questions?
No.
You all got neuroanatomy down? We're good to go. Okay, fantastic. Well,
Thank you.
I want to say, both Amy and I, who run Royer Neuroscience and ultimately Inner Armor Neuro, we're just so excited and glad that you're in the program. And we're excited that you're able to use this newer technology. The science is still the same. The inner workings is the same, going all the way back to when it was originally used in the late 60s to start to change the brains of people with epilepsy. The science is the same. It's just we're in an awesome time where technology is matching up or merging with science, that you can actually do a medical procedure in your home by putting this EEG on and train your brain and do it on your phone or your iPad. It's really a cool time to be involved in the merger of science with technology. And we're glad to have you guys in the program enjoying the use of some of this newer technology. Okay. We're always available for questions. We're next month, probably that first week of the month in May, we'll have another time like this. It probably will be, I'm thinking it's going to be on sleep unless a lot of people say I want it to be on this, but that's probably where we'll go next. Okay, great. Thank you for your time. You guys have a really good rest of your day. Okay, we'll see you.